Premier and former leader Patrick McNamara and Merrill, who have joined us here this evening. I see Noel Bourne and Dorothy are here, down the back there, waving hellos. I think we have 5 of our current Cabinet Ministers here this evening in the form of yours truly, Peter Walsh, who's our Deputy Leader, Damien Drummy, the Honourable Damien Drum, I should say, of course, Tim Ball and Russell North is here as well. And then apart from those of us as ministerially, there are many other members of our current team who are here in addition, ladies and gentlemen. And so I welcome all of them to Peter Swartz as our State President and Jenny Hammond, who's over there working away industriously as our State Director, and very particularly to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, who are otherwise here for the purposes of this evening. I welcome you one and all to this very, very important occasion. And I do welcome and recognise also those in charge of the catering, because when you're at a Nationals function, you need good caterers, history would say. So thank you very much for the work that's been done in the kitchen. A round of applause for them, ladies and gentlemen. And finally, last and by no means least, would you welcome the candidate for the Nationals for the seat of Euroa, Steph Ryan. Now first, we are not related. But this lady I think has much to offer in terms of political representation in Victoria, and should the people of Euroa see fit to entrust her with their vote on the 29th of November 2014, only 102 days away, I can confidently tell them they will have elected an absolutely magnificent parliamentary representative. And winning the seat of Euroa is critically important for us as a national party. First, I might say, in the sense of having the honour to represent what will be a new seat. We know how it came about, and we don't need to dwell on the history. The Victorian Electoral Commission, in their wisdom, they determined various things as a result of the review which they undertook over these past many, many months, and came to a conclusion which saw, in part, the creation of the new seat of Euroa. I might say it also saw the fact that the seat of Rodney, which was represented so well by Noel Bourne for so long, and then more recently by Paul Weller, unfortunately, tragically even, the seat of Rodney has been abolished as a result of the work undertaken by the VEC, so that what the Labor Party couldn't do, what the Liberal Party couldn't do, what no independent could ever do, the Victorian Electoral Commission did, and abolished the seat of Rodney, took it away from the Nationals' representation. But, be that as it may, the new seat of Euroa was created. And it will be critical for us to win this seat, not only in its right, not only to represent the people of this great electorate, but also, crucially, because if we are going to retain government, if we are going to continue as the coalition government of this wonderful state, we need to make sure that we win the seat of Euroa. We need to do everything we possibly can for the purposes of being able to retain our role as the government of Victoria. It is in our short-term interests as a state, and similarly the long-term, even the medium-term as well. And so for the purposes of being able to do what we possibly can to bring about that outcome, we have this year, in May, on the 8th of May, in fact, we've delivered a very extensive budget. We are looking to implement the terms of that budget. Tonight's not the time to talk about it in detail. But what it does present to Victorians is a plan which is fully funded, a plan which shows the way ahead to the representation of our state and as to its future. And most particularly from our respective interests of those of us in rural and regional Victoria, it sets out a plan which will do more than what we have already done even for the purposes of being able to deliver upon our promises to the regions. We set out to establish a regional growth fund, we did it. We set out to establish programs under that fund. We now have over 1,500 of them, ladies and gentlemen, which we have delivered under the terms of the Regional Growth Fund. We set out to spend the first $500 million of that $1 billion fund. We set out to spend that first $500 in these first 4 years. We've allocated about $480 million of it. We've leveraged about $1.7 billion worth of investment through regional Victoria as a result of the work we've done in the Regional Growth Fund. It's created about 5,500 jobs for regional Victorians. And in places like Seymour, in places like Kilmore, in places like Benalla, in the many other communities which go to make up this wonderful seat, we have been able to inject the funding from the Regional Growth Fund to make sure that we can meet the aspirations of rural and regional Victorians. And that in the end is what this party is about. Our place in the Parliament, as the only party dedicated to the cause, is to represent the interests of rural and regional Victorians. And so we will stand at this election on our record of having delivered for those different communities. Now I might say we stand in this facility which has given great service over a period of many, many years. But the fact is that we need some changes made around facilities such as this, so that in places such as Seymour, we can see the sporting sector, but also the many other elements who go to share a facility such as this, able to be engaged in the use of facilities which are appropriate to contemporary needs. And I would hope, therefore, that in time to come, through the great work that Steph's been able to do, and those others of us who are otherwise have ministerial responsibility, that we can work with the Shire, that we can work with the people of this region to make sure we can deliver the sorts of outcomes that what they want to see in terms of their sporting facilities that are so critically important to them. But it will be one that engages all of us, particularly from the perspective of the local community. So I'd like to think that we'll be back to talk about that in some more detail before the next 102 days expires. We'll just have to wait and see. In the meantime, Steph Ryan is a magnificent candidate. I say, obviously, in her presence and at the risk of embarrassing her mightily. She came to work with us, and particularly on my own team about 5 odd years ago or thereabouts. She's been able to do different things both at the time we were in opposition, particularly around policy development, and then while we've been in government. She's had different roles, and they of course have been well documented. Not the least of them was as a ministerial advisor to Peter Walsh in his role as the Minister for Water. And indeed, as I've just said to a radio station, she's very probably forgotten more about the water industry than I, for one, am ever likely to learn. She is a lady who has had a lot of time in the way in which the government operates. She worked within the Premier Ted Baillieu's own area of media responsibility and did that for around about a year. She's done various other things too within government. And the total mix, therefore, is an individual who has a great knowledge of rural and regional Victoria, born in Murchison, of course, and lived a lot of her life in the country, but she's also had a broad-ranging experience of the way in which government actually operates, the things that need to be done to make sure that government delivers. In the last 6 months or thereabouts, she's trekked back and forth across the seat of Euroa. We have been in many, many, many forums together, as we were just at Kilmore in the last couple of days, but also we've been in forums here at Seymour. We've been in different locations right across the electorate of Euroa. And so I would say to the people who are 102 days away from casting their vote, that in Steph, they have a wonderful candidate who would be a fantastic Member of Parliament. I also say to the public at large, as well as to the people of Euroa, when people talk about aspirations for the future, you hear them speak so often about having young people engaged in politics. You'll hear them so often talking about, why don't we have more women in Parliament? Why don't we have more young women who are engaged in being able to represent community and be able to do it to the ultimate sense within the Parliament of Victoria? Well, here we have the epitome of what all that conversation is about. And if people are really, really intent upon having delivered for their representation a person who is of this ilk to a T, who has great knowledge and brings it to the task, as well as has all those attributes that people pine for so much when they talk about the next generation and succession planning and all those sorts of fine concepts. Well, the moment is nigh, and Stephanie Ryan, I believe, would fulfil all those aspirations and more. Ladies and gentlemen, Steph Ryan.